All right. Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us. I apologize. We had some technical difficulties, but ready to get started. So it's our great pleasure to have Tarun Mohan with us today as our guest speaker. Um, he's the Vice President of Analytics and Solutions at Atrium Health Medicine, and previously he has been with the Mayo Clinic for several years, served in a variety of different positions, executives, related to systems transformation as well as process flow improvement. So it's a strong analytics background and applies all of that in the health system setting. So without further delay, I'm going to invite Tyrone and pass it on to him. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. When I was in school, I thought leadership naturally came to me. Nobody needed to teach me that, right? Um, but as I have been in leadership positions for several years now, and reflect back on it, there was a lot of on-the-job learning I've had, right? But the reality is, leadership is so nebulous in nature. There are certain principles that you can, learn from classes and all of that. But what your leadership style truly evolves to be is that learning from sometimes, unfortunately, failures that have massive impact on people you're leading, right, or the organizations you're leading. But that's also going to teach you how to really evolve to be a leader. So very important to realize that leadership is a journey. Everything I'm going to share today is my experiences, and I will be very vulnerable and share some of the failures I've had, right, and how I really pulled myself out of that. And um, I've come up with these theories and principles that now I try to apply and see if it works and then customize them based on the situation as needed. So again, I want the discussion to be really collaborative today. Please jump in as you have thoughts, questions. You can certainly feel free to interrupt. So before I get started, right? So as Pinar mentioned, I have worked in healthcare for majority of my career, and I cannot tell you um, if there's a better time to be a part of the healthcare system, right? In a good and a bad way, right? I think the pandemic was really strenuous, but it is leading to such a transformative change in healthcare, which was so necessary to bring about that innovation, that transformation, that to really improve the communities, the patients, the providers, and everybody involved. And I think that's just accelerated. So we really need more and more of those transformative leaders that can bring that data, that can bring that innovation, and that can bring that transformative thinking to healthcare environment. So uh, considering you guys want to be leaders, maybe there is not a better time to really be a leader in healthcare. So, this is an interesting question, right? I guess you've gone through a few months of your class. How many of you think leadership is one of the biggest things about leadership is it's not about really managing a problem statement by yourself, right? It's about bringing individuals of diverse backgrounds to be able to collectively solve and embrace the problem for a sustainable change. And we are different, right? Our opinions are different. My opinion is probably going to be very different from yours, and that's okay, right? How do we collectively bring all that together to be able to be sustainable and successful is what leadership is all about. One other very astute and interesting learning I've had over the years is the further you grow in the leadership ladder, right? When I say that, it's from moving from being a manager where you're managing a team of individuals to where you're really an executive leader where you have teams reporting to you, but you're not doing the day-to-day management, right? You're driving strategy, you're really trying to come up with um, motivate people to really work for a bigger purpose, right? The further away you are from really doing the technical know-how, right? And it takes a lot of um, courage, discipline, ability to inspire to be successful at that level, right? And also ability to connect with people, right? And yes, there are some people that just like Mark Zuckerberg, right? Just come up with an idea and just believe and trust in it and push that forward. But some of that comes over time, right? So let me ask you another question, right? How many of you think successful leaders or successful leadership is all about number of years of experience you have? How many of you believe in that? Nobody? All right. And yes, it is not, right? It is about the quality of experiences you've had. And that's not just work experiences, right? It's the personal, professional, and basically it's kind of related to personal experiences, but being a part of the community, right? That teaches you what is true leadership. So as I kind of get into my, principles that I have learned over time, I'll be sharing very specific examples all across my career journey. But I just wanted you to have a sense to how all this came together, right? Um, so just so you get a sense, and these are some big milestones that really made a difference in my life, right? Have taught me a lot and have given me perspective to things that make me the leader I am today. And I'm looking forward to the journey ahead as well. So, I have been an immigrant. I moved from India across continents to the United States, just like maybe some of you here, to do my master's and PhD in industrial engineering. Got through that, got an awesome job with Mayo Clinic, and have was a strong individual contributor, right? And I'm sure you guys will be. As I was doing that individual contributor role, I felt like I was ready the next year to move into a leadership position. Uh, and I'll talk a little more about that. But eventually, over years, after multiple attempts, I moved into a management position. And then after that, I sort of, before I even go there, and I had like my dad passed away, right? I was continents away, and that was hard, right? That's hard. Taught me a lot of humility, taught me a lot of purpose, helped me redefine my purpose in life. And then, I took a couple of other leadership roles, operational roles, and then eventually transitioned to Georgia. There's a lot of other personal and professional transitions that have happened since I moved to Georgia. And in this current role, it's been 3 years. I was just talking to Pinar, but like most of you know, the 3 years have been terrific and uh, uh, have made all of us experience so much change and have taught me a lot, which I want to share with you again today. All right. So with that, let's just get into the top 5 lessons I've had so far, right? And I know you guys are learning some other principles and all that, but these are totally my learnings, my discoveries, which probably you'll relate to the themes that you have learned in your classes. So I will share stories around all of this, right? The first one is about finding a personal brand, right? And then how you build a support system around yourself, right? And around the purpose that you have defined for your brand, right? And then it gets to how do you, it's good to build a support system around it, but how do you engage them to be able to drive towards that purpose that you have defined? And then, it, we don't live in a world which is very deterministic, right? It's stochastic in nature. Things are going to fail. Um, how do you build resilience around that to be able to continue to try, right? It's very easy to give up in those moments, but that's what resilience is all about. And then as you're going on this journey and as you have successes and failures, uh, how do you really celebrate them, reflect, and move forward? So those are the five things that I think are very critical for all of us to be aware of. Um, and even within those, right, there are micro levels of ways you approach those situations, and that's where the continuous learning comes, right? Because again, I'm not a expert in leadership. I have learned it over the in my job, and I'm sharing that with you. So you can probably tell me what your principals are telling you, and if there are things, there are amends I should make to my leader. All right. With that, let's talk about finding your purpose, right? So, I find this very interesting. A lot of people in my career have told me, "What do you really want to do, Tarun?" Right? Uh, do you know what you want to do? How many of you know what you want to do? This is what I want to be when I grow up. Done? And that's the look I gave them, right? I was like, what do you mean, right? Maybe I want to be a physician. Maybe I want to be a leader. The key there is, and that's okay, right? Having a purpose doesn't mean that you need to know always what you want to. You need to continue to find your purpose, right? So I'll give you an example about it. So I actually wanted to become a physician. I first started my career for a variety of reasons. So, I shared with you guys I was at the clinic and I thought I wanted to become a teacher. But along the way, even after wanting to be a leader, I started to realize why do I want to be a leader, right? And there could be a variety of it. For me, it was more about being able to bring about a transformative change, right? So that was my purpose. I thrived in innovation. I wanted to do something different. And I'll tell you on this too, right? One of the very important things to remember is it does not have to be overly realistic, right? It needs to be a massive transformative purpose that you want to, and that's what it is. And it changes over time depending on what you like to do, right? You love to do analytics, that's fine. You want to be a leader in that space. Let's be honest. It's also dependent on you guys know the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Depending on where you are, right? For me initially, it was all about how can I get paid better, right? And that's okay. Then there is what your strengths are, right? I had a tendency just because of the optimization and process improvement background we have, right? I always had a constant tendency to make things that I'm not doing well better, right? But sometimes the strength is really in focusing on things you're really good at, right? Because that's where you'll be able to um, thrive, and it's a very important element. And then it's also about, you reach a point in your life where it's about what does the world need, right? So it's a combination of all that that really helps you define your purpose. And it's okay. You may not have answers to what my strengths are, what I love to do, but it's all about constantly reflecting on that. Okay. Then it's also very important. I'll actually talk about it. So why is it important to find your purpose and continue to think about it, right? A lot of people say, "What do you want to do?" But the biggest reason it's important to continue to reflect on it is in life, right? You need to make a lot of trade-offs. You need to make a lot of choices, and you need to focus on what's important, right? Um, when it comes to making those choices and trade-offs too, right? I'm pretty confident with the school you're graduating from, you have you're going to have wealth of opportunity, right? And at every step, you need to decide how important is this for my purpose and where I want to be, right? Sometimes you need to make those decisions in comparison to your own personal existence, personal life, right? Um, and once you are really clear on your purpose, you are more reflective on what is the right decision for you at that point. So the reason it's important to, one of the reasons it's important to find your purpose and continue to think about it is so you can prioritize and focus on things that are important. Um, Now, once you find the purpose too, right, you need to be able to put the energy and courage behind it. So I'll give you guys a great example on purpose and glory. So I think I heard some of you are involved in form, right? How many people are involved in form? Great, right? So I'm involved with Informs too, and I'm involved with another group called IIS, which you probably are familiar with. And um, I'm the president for their Society for Health, right? So my purpose, right, although I'm not exactly doing that job right now, right, my purpose in life is to be able to really help at this moment, right, is to really be able to help individuals match to their right career, right? So think about it. When I was a kid, right, in India, I'm just being honest. There are just two options you have. You can become an engineer or you become a physician, doctor, right? Nobody talks about any third option there, right? So guess what? I thought I'll become a physician and then eventually transition to be an engineer, right? I'm glad I fell into a job where I'm in. But think about how many people make that decision, just like myself, without any information, right? There is nothing in the community to provide that support. We are all an outcome of our experiences. You're born in a physician family, so you just get into it. That's how it works. So my massive purpose is, right, my massive transformational purpose today is to be able to connect the individual's friends to the career they want to go at the right time before they even join any program, right? So as I'm going back to where I started, right? Going back to where I started, I really, as the president of the society, wanted to incorporate some way of enabling that in the strategic plan, right? Guess what? I'm working with some strong leaders around, right? So don't, and we had to make some bold decisions around how we are going to invest funds, right? Now, if I am not going to put, right, that energy behind it and push them to collectively to really move in that direction, it's not going to happen. And will I be able to do that if I don't strongly? Will I be able to do that if it's not my purpose? So I think it's very critical for us to really, once you find your purpose, to be bold about it and help people understand and inspire them to align with your vision. All right, we'll keep going here. Now, once you find what your purpose is, it's very important to find support. Because to your point, what you're trying to do is really stuff that doesn't come naturally. We don't even think in that direction. Sometimes we have a tendency going with the flow, right? And this is going to, because you're so thoughtful, and if you want to be a leader, you can take a step back and think about how you can connect the dots and make a big change. And not having that support system can be very difficult, right? Support system is at two levels, and I'll talk about the second level in the next slide here. But the first level is finding people that can encourage you, that can motivate you, that can serve as a coach, right? So I personally have had incredible mentors throughout my career, right? That have told me the good, bad, and ugly, right? So I'll give you guys a small example. When I became the first, and it was my first leadership job, right? And we were really forming a new team that would enable cost reduction at New York Center, right? Had a very massive goal of exploring initiatives within outpatient clinics to be able to reduce costs. Right? Being very scientific in my mind and having grown up as an individual contributor, I had a tendency to really get caught up in putting together big models and, although there was a team, got so caught up in looking at what is the big framework, how are we going to go about facilitating the change, that's the way, right? And one fine day, one of the senior leaders in the organization called me to their office and had a very heart conversation, right? And she basically said, and she did it really well too, right? It was like she said when she first got feedback, it was from a physician, and she said the physician handed her a 6-page document giving her feedback around what she could do better, right? So she just prefaced it so I don't get really hurt by the feedback she's giving. And her biggest feedback to me was you need to act something, right? A very important lesson in professional life, right? Which was it was my first leadership job, right? I have built this big team that's just conceptualizing ideas, but not proving the hypothesis, right? So pretty soon, what does that do? It demotivates the team because they feel like they are not making a difference, right? Everybody wants to make a difference. It was not a very healthy situation for leadership because we are not able to show results, right? And I myself was losing my purpose, right? So the, that particular conversation I had with that leader has stuck with me for years. The reason I tell you the story is that it's very important for you to find mentors, friends, colleagues that are willing to be honest feedback. And the key there is also reaching out. It is very easy for people to build goals, try to want to figure it out themselves, because sometimes putting themselves in vulnerable situations. And I've been right. So because she really cared for my future, she wanted to really uh, call me to her office. So very important to keep that in mind. The other thing I'll say is kind of on the left side there, sounds very psychological and philosophical, right? It's very important. There are a lot of times for undoubtedly going from the key there as a leader is to be professional about it and start to also reflect on what are they teaching and what is their why. Because until you understand what is their why, nobody likes to be to anybody. That's just not you. There's something behind their behavior. And it's very important to reflect on that and help um, basically, you need to really negotiate around that because, and I'll talk more about that. And then it's about the second level of engagement, right? Do you think you could do it? So, how many of you think, or how many of you are working on team projects? Most of it, right? Do you see the difference? Is it harder to work? It is, right? It is much harder. But is it important? the difference in when you work independently versus is right? Because you can really come up with better ideas. So I'll give you an example around this too, right? The very first project we were asked to do was productivity. Right? How are we going to measure and increase productivity of clinical staff within the organization? It was spanning across all hospitals, and we were focused more on not physicians at that point, but more the other staff. Right? Do you think that was a politically challenging project? That to be new to the organization? Yes, right. Very hard project. But so as a leader of that initiative that had not built relationships, right? My first job, or the first thing we did was form the multi that included the nurses, not the leaders, the people that actually do the work and their leaders, right? Basically, or nurses, people from finance that has drive some of those metrics, people from quality because that's an important component, right? You don't want to cut stuff. Collectively, as a team, they're able to take the team was able to take so much ownership, right, and came up with the most creative idea. End of the day, what that ended up doing was that we didn't have to, most times, even though productivity is considered right, that's what we do. But really, we were able to apply all these analytical principles and train the frontline workers to be able to balance staff and cross-train employees across multiple units, right? A very successful initiative. So really, the more you engage, the more diversity you bring around the people, the ideas are. And then it also helps from an implementation perspective. So then it doesn't feel like you're telling them what to do, right? So again, I think it's not just about, so I just want to emphasize when you talk about the second component that I was talking about, it's about recruiting your support system, but then also the support system forward. That really think about it from those two factors. Then, I gave you an example about this, right? Uh, you also need to be as a leader cognizant of the fact that you're not going to be completely happy, right? And that can be very frustrating, very motivating to your own self, right? What you need to do in that situation is two things. Perfection can be an enemy, right? Nothing is perfect. Two is you need to start small, right? Start somewhere, show some progress. It's important for your own self um, resilience. And so I'll again kind of go back to that example that was given that we were coming up with this massive project around established patients, right? How we are going to reduce the number of patients and frequency of patients within our clinic so we could increase capacity. And we were trying to look at that of the entire system collectively and coming up with big programs to do that. But really, what it took was going and building partnerships with the cardiology practice, helping them do some of those people to be able to price and with the value proposition. Pretty much, it caught up as wildfire, right? Every practice wanted to also get that through those at one time. So keep in mind always when you come up with these big ideas, try to find the value proposition and act towards it. It's very important for the bigger initiative to be successful. Then we are all human beings. I talked about this a little sometime back too. Communication is something that most of the time we forget to engage and we forget to communicate, right? Um, so as a leader, it's very important to continue to emphasize to people the importance, help them understand and inspire them, and then also recognize what they are doing on an ongoing basis. We are actually out. I'll share this with you too. So, since I've moved to this organization, I've gone through a lot of right? And the team that I formed around me was starting to really get concerned about what the future state looks like because we are merging with a bigger organization, right? And one thing that I overlooked through that process was I was always trying to have the team managers that keep those communicate. But really having those one-on-one communications with the team helped me understand what they are going through and then also re-emphasizing them what change is coming and preparing them for that was very helpful so they don't feel like they need to find another job. Let's move on. Um, then, learning from adversity, this is one thing that has been very hard for me personally. Um, because, like I said, as an individual contributor, right, I always was successful, right? I got all the time. I never really understood failure from that perspective, right? But when I went through the whole transition order to Georgia, that COVID situation, there were so many instances within the organization where it was uh, so easy to get frustrated, so easy to feel like we are not progress towards where we however, really realizing through that some of the failures you've had, it's progress because you know now what not to do, right? And how to really move forward with that is very critical. Um, I've had a lot of recent experiences where I've experienced failure, even at a personal level. But it teaches you a lot of things, right? And one of the things that um, I have done, right, is utilize services for services like therapy. And it's very important to leverage that. And it's very important as a leader to encourage others to leverage that. Because if you are not mentally challenged and excited and clear in your heart, it's very hard to really through these difficult that are not always successful. One small failure that most of you probably, I hope you had, I had, but I never thought much about it, is we probably the program software. How often are you likely that? You do, right? And I think it's very important to learn from that. All right. I really like that quote on the right there. Um, I, he, the past is always an experience, present is present, right? I mean, industrial engineering is not about physics. That's exactly right. So the days when I have difficult moments at work because I've had a crucial conversation with one of my friends or one of my employees, I go back and reflect on what went wrong in that situation, right? And then, believe it or not, there are times when I go back and it's fine. So it's very important to really reflect and cherish on those moments and also celebrate your and I think I hope 2020 has brought all of us that it's not about the mountains, but also the realization to appreciate everything and how to make the best out of it. And then, the last slide, I think this is the last slide. I'll have one more. In all this process as a leader, the job is not about making decisions. And it's very easy to constantly question it, right? But the reality is, you can reflect on the road not taken, but that road doesn't take you forward, right? So you need to start being kind to yourself and commit to the decision. And that's where progression comes. That's where continuous comes. Um, and I often reflected after I moved to Georgia as an example. I was like, why I moved to Georgia. But the reality is that options exist, and I'm thriving on what I'm doing. So as a leader, you cannot constantly question yourself, and you need to be courageous. And it goes back to the full circle around finding the path of purpose. All right. With that, I think I will conclude with the last slide saying, you know, uh, just like life, leadership is also a roller coaster ride. Say, embrace it if you really want to go down that path. Put the seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Right? You really need to because that's how you will be able to truly embrace leadership. So a couple of key things that I really want to have you take away, right? Don't wait. If you really want to move down the leadership path, believe in yourself, continue to reflect on your purpose, and get on it, right? Once you get on the ride, how do you get on the ride? A lot of people tell me, how do I get my first leadership job, right? Go find opportunity. Get on. One of the things that nobody told me is you become a leader, a better leader, if you start trying it, right? So all the voluntary leadership opportunities out there, I have benefited the most from. So go find those opportunities for yourself. Find a coach, right? Or a mentor. I just talked about the informed confidence. Cold calling helps. You won't believe it, so many people are willing to partner with you, help you grow, and do it. Don't hesitate. Um, Develop the confidence, right? Remember when you get on the roller coaster ride, the only way you're going to fail is if you decide to jump off, right? But if you keep going, you're going to make progress. So don't lose hope and don't jump off the roller coaster. Keep going, right? Be positive about it. And then, for those of you who have already thought through what you want to do, continue to reflect on it and be bold. Uh, Especially in healthcare, right? The only way forward is if we can be bold. And then I cannot attest to the fact around anyone. That's that's my mindset. With that, I'll take any questions.